Welcome to the Wingman Show. My name is Drew Brown, and my wingman, my man, the number one guy I know, Dr. Paul Thompson. What's up, brother? Welcome to the Wingman Show, where we're floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you two badass jet pilots, rumble. Who's that other badass jet pilot? It's my man, my wingman, the guy who always watches my six, Dr. Paul Thompson. What's up, brother Paul? How you doing today?
I'm pretty good, Commander Drew. I'm good to see you. This is a great day. Birds are chirping. Sometimes they fly into the windows this time of year. I had one that keeps flying, but other than the bird trying to end its life, everything is going good.
You know, that's funny you should say that. When I work out in my gym, there's a bird who tries to crash through that window all day long. And I think he sees his reflection and he's trying to get a kiss. But anyway,
I think so.
let's start off our show with a quote. One of the greatest lessons I've learned from my dad was to make sure your children know you love them. Once again, one of the greatest lessons I learned from my dad was to make sure your children know you love them. And you know who that was by? That was by Al Roker. Sunday, Sunday. I love when he does that.
Okay,
Al Roker. What do you think about that, Dr. P?
I guess it's interesting that you say that, because just about 4 days ago, my wife was saying the same thing, and she was quoting something that one of my aunts in Jamaica told her when our kids were really, really small and we were just visiting. They were like 4 and 2, ages 4 and 2, some time ago. And she says the other day, she said, remember Aunt Beryl said, always tell them you love them. That was just 4 days ago. As far as Al Roker goes, that's interesting. I didn't realize we grew up in the same neighborhood. In fact, at one point he went to school opposite, just about half a block away from my elementary school in St. Albans, Queens, which I didn't know. He probably, I wonder if he knew my friends Andre and Glenn Orman. I bet he did. So it can be really a small world. You never know who you're going to see.
Very small world, Dr. Paul. And I'm glad Al Roker grew up in your neighborhood. That's pretty cool. Yeah. You know, the name of our show today is How to Live in Luxury. Give yourself a soft pillow. And what does that mean? It means to start loving yourself. You have to start being kind to yourself first. It's like we learned, Paul, every time we flew an airplane, the first emergency procedure was to put your own oxygen mask on so you can stay alive. And I think it's so important to take care of yourself and start giving yourself the soft pillow, little luxuries. What do you think, Paul?
Yes, well, Mr. Drew, I think you're right about that. It's easy to lose track of that because we get so busy in our lives, working, doing things, taking care of family, especially if you're taking care of someone that's sick, someone that's ill. That can be kind of challenging, because who cares for the caregiver when the caregiver is the one that really needs the care? A lot of times it's nobody. So you've really got to watch yourself, get some exercise. Now you got a cold dip pool. You've changed your regimen, haven't you, Drew?
I sure have. I just bought an Arctic Warrior Cold Plunge Pool that we got in yesterday. It was 50 degrees, and it really made Katrina feel great. She didn't think she could do it, but she jumped in there and did it. I was so proud of her. And getting back to that soft pillow, I did that for myself. I paid a little bit of extra money, but that's a luxury that I wanted because it makes me feel good. Here's the physiological part, Dr. Paul. When you stress, you release cortisol, and cortisol is a drip that goes inside your body. It will destroy your organs. Mm-hmm. And every time you stress, that cortisol starts to drip. And that's the same stuff that when it's mixed with adrenaline, that's where the old lady can pick up a car if her grandchild was under it. On the other hand, if you start feeling good and start doing things for yourself, it releases a drug called dopamine. And dopamine makes you feel good. Dopamine makes you want to live. And talking about just giving yourself a little luxury, I used to work in Las Vegas promoting fights. for my father and Ali and Caesar's Palace. And I remember looking at a tie in a store, and back then it was $100 for this tie. It was the prettiest tie I ever seen. Back then, $100 was a lot of money, and I didn't buy it. You want to know something, Paul? I think about that tie till today, and I should have done it. It's almost, Paul, in Costco, if you
Yeah,
see something, you better buy it, because when you get back there the next time, it probably won't be there.
that's right. You're right about that. Yeah, get yourself something nice. I might give myself a treat. I'm gonna get one of those foot ionizers, I think they call it. You soak your feet in this bath, and the little current runs through, and it stimulates your lymphatic system. Forget the whole physics behind it. I've done it in the past. It's very relaxing. You feel light as a feather. I think there's something to it. And I thought about it for years. I paid to do it, but you can buy your own machine. It costs a couple bucks, but I think I'm probably going to do that within the next 2 months.
Well, we talked about that, and it was $600 actually. And I
Yeah.
said, Paul, buy the damn thing, because in your life, nothing will change when you spend that $600. You've been blessed enough to have that happen to you. Always give yourself the soft pillow. And you know what's good for single people? Take a cruise. They do solo cruises. Treat yourself kindly. Be your own best friend. So let's start this show off with some good news. It's really incredible. We work every day to try to find some good news to bring to people, and it's not that easy to find, but I found some. How about this good news? Murder is down 26%, rape is down 27%, robberies 18%, aggravated assault 13%, property crime just over 15%. That came from the FBI. Crime is down. Why does it take two Navy jet pilots to talk about good news? It looks like the media doesn't want to talk about good things. Huh, Paul?
Well, yeah, as Commander Drew would say, if it bleeds, it leads. But on the Wingman Show, if it's good, it should. So, you basically have to be kind of like a drug sniffing dog to find good stories. They're around, and we just uncover them, and
Well,
it
that's
makes me feel better just to see them.
100%. And that's what this show is about. We have two guys here trying to bring you good stuff. We're successful, we have good lives, and we made a couple of dollars in our life. And we're just trying to show that there is good out there in the world. And how about this? This is one of my favorites, Dr. Paul. I love being wrong, because every time I'm wrong, I learn something. And Dr. P, you taught me something that is so important. We
What's
actually
that?
did a show on it.
What was that?
I was reading a headline about an enslaved person. That means they actually wrote enslaved. And you taught me that. There are no slaves. There are people who are enslaved. And I saw them write it. And that made me really feel good, Dr. Paul. Can you believe that? The
Yeah,
media is now using stuff that they heard on the Wingman Show.
yeah. I've noticed every once in a while I'll read something and I'll see instead of slave, I've seen enslaved once or twice every once in a while. I don't know if they got it from me or whatever. And I got it from someone else, to be quite honest with you. And I hadn't years ago, I had never really thought about it like that. In fact, it was one of my children's tutors decades ago. He made that point during one of the classes I was just sitting in on. I said, I never thought about it like that. So it's, I can't take credit for it. Mr.
Yes, you can
Clifford
take
Black.
credit for teaching me, though, because a slave person shouldn't be a noun. Nobody is a slave. People are enslaved. How about some other good news? Remember Dick Van Dyke from the Dick Van Dyke Show? He's
Oh, yes.
98 years old, Dr. Paul. He just won an Emmy.
Wow. Commander Drew, I was thinking about him about 2 weeks ago, just a little bit, not looking at the Emmys, but I was looking at another popular movie out, one of the Bad Boys series. And at one point, Martin Lawrence says, "Chitty chitty bang bang," and something else behind it, which I can't repeat. But he says, "Chitty chitty bang bang," and that was actually the name of a movie, and Dick Van Dyke was in that movie. I had nothing to do with Bad Boys Part Four, but that came up. Chitty chitty bang bang. Where else did you
Wow.
would you where did you use that kind of phrase?
Well, that's really cool, Dr. Paul. Last little good news, Caitlin Clark, we always talk about women's NBA, the WNBA. She just played against Angel Reese from Chicago. And what I'm bringing up is, do you know the average price for that ticket was $350? The WNBA is coming up, and that is really good news. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening to us on Apple Podcasts or watching us on YouTube, Instagram. Thank you so much. TikTok, we really appreciate it. And we have a newsletter on wingmanshow.com. Our newsletter this week is How to Treat Yourself Like a Superstar. Why don't you get it at wingmanshow.com? And also on that website, you can ask Dr. Paul and myself a question, and we have a frequent flow line. And this week's frequent flow line is from a man in San Diego, a 55-year-old man. Matter of fact, he is a retired gunnery sergeant from the United States Marine Corps. And he asked Dr. Paul and myself, his wife is always late. She's chronically late, and it's really starting to piss him off. And he wanted to know from the Wingman Show what he should do, because he just can't take it, because it crosses every fiber in his body being late. And that's something we learned in the military, is to be on time. Dr. Paul, why don't you give him a little bit of advice?
Well, first thing I think in my mind is it's cheaper to keep her. You need to, maybe you have to relax a little bit. She's not one of your troops. You can't fire her. You probably can't PT her to death. Any of that kind of stuff. That can happen. You're not alone. It's hurting every fiber in your being because you probably spent a lot of time in the Corps and whatever else you're doing that requires you to be on time. A lot of times operating airplanes, everything's to the minute. Definitely to the minute. If there's a minute delay, it has to be accounted for by somebody or somewhere. A lot of times everybody's pointing fingers. Where'd that minute go? So, I'd say try to, if it's something like really, really super important, maybe you need to go by yourself, if that's the case. Hard to change an adult. I assume she's your age, thereabouts, a little more, a little less. At this point in life, probably not going to change a whole lot. But what you can't do is grind yourself up inside and spike your cortisol that we were just talking about. Make yourself sick. You said it messes with every fiber in your being. And tell me if you agree with this. I'll call you Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew, if you agree with this, but he might be elevating his cortisol to a dangerous level and actually affecting his health. If it is affecting your health, you need to dial back, because the only person who's going to be hurt is you. So I would say take a chill pill, take a breath, talk to her about it, and make your moves based on what she says. I'm assuming she's even aware of it.
Well, Dr. Paul, this is how I feel about marriage: compassion, compromise, and commitment. Those are the 3 C's. And I just heard that the other day, but I think that that's real important. First of all, Dr. Paul said it. She is not in the Marine Corps, and she was raised differently than you were raised. She was trained differently than you were trained. Some of the little tricks you could do is always give the time that you need to be there, give her a half hour earlier. So maybe when she gets there, it'll be on time. But what's really important, like Dr. Paul says, is don't stress yourself out because somebody else is doing something. You have to take care of yourself, and it's your mind. So if she's making herself late, Dr. Paul said it, maybe sometimes you just have to go by yourself. But it's really important in a marriage that you compromise with each other and that you talk. Communication is so important. And instead of getting mad about not being on time, try to explain to her why it's so important. All right, Dr. Paul, you know what that brings us to?
What's that?
It brings us to a Wingman PSA. From the 11 facts in life, under fact number 10, treat others as you want to be treated. Fact number 10, treat others as you want to be treated. They say that's the golden rule, Dr. Paul. to
Yeah.
treat others as you want to be treated. And I always want to be treated nice. So I think the answer to world peace is being nice. You don't have to agree with everybody, but you sure can be nice, huh, Paul?
Yeah, it costs nothing. I agree with you, Mr. Drew. It costs nothing to be decent. Everybody doesn't have to be hard and tough every second of the day. Sometimes that's just a kind of a false front uh, to hide insecurities.
I agree totally, Dr. Paul. All right, let's talk about the gouge. And we just were talking about marriage, but did you know that marriage beats career in happiness? And if you are happily married, you are 545% better off than somebody who is not happily married. And that is amazing. And we talked about compromise, compassion, commitment. Being married is very, very important to me. It's because it makes a team. And I think teamwork beats a single person every single time. But what's important is that you find that person. And like I said, you're not going to find a perfect person because there are no perfect people.
Right.
But the big thing to look for is love. If you love somebody, things can work out, Dr. Paul. And marriage is way more important than career. They've done studies, and people who had a lot of money but had a shitty marriage, they were not happy. Yet people with not that good of a career but a happy marriage, they were happy. And I believe in life, you need to be happy because that's what it's all about, Paul.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Drew. You've probably seen, as I have, particularly other cultures that we've seen where they materially the group may not have much of anything. In fact, sometimes the clothes you're wearing on your back might be more than the accumulated wealth of some families we've seen where they worked hard all their lives. It's just kind of the way it is in some places. Yet their happiness index can be through the roof.
And I believe that life is about living a long, happy, and healthy life. That long part is about taking care of yourself. And Dr. Paul and I, we like to exercise because we know that the four things that will help you live a long, happy life. What are the four things? You have to keep your body moving. You have to eat well. You have to have purpose in life. And you have to have a close knit group of friends like Dr. Paul and I. Those are the things that will always, always keep you happy and actually make you live longer, Dr. Paul. Routine exercise. So you and I exercise all the time, but I just read that you can't do the same thing all the time. Muscle memory, your muscles will start understanding what you're doing and will not stress enough to actually grow. There was this Greek wrestler called Milo, and I just love this. And it was a Greek mythology. But what he did when he started his training, he would buy a baby calf. And every day he would take that calf and walk up the steps of the Colosseum. But every day that calf got bigger. And by the end of his training, he was walking up and down the stairs with a full-grown cow. You ever heard about that, Paul?
Just from you, Mr. Drew, and you know what a a true New Yorker would say. Okay, so he does the same thing with the toy truck, and every day he gets a bigger toy truck, and eventually he walks up with a full truck with a load of wood on it. You know, that could be mythology. That's urban mythology. It's New York mythology. I just made that up.
Well, let me ask you this. How do you change your routine, Dr. Paul? Because I've been adding weights and adding reps. Sometimes I do heavy weights with low reps,
Mhm.
or I'll start to back down on the weight and I'll do a lot of reps to get my muscles tired. The idea is to get them exhausted because when they get exhausted, they tear and then they grow. Oh, and another thing, don't go in a cold dip right after you lift weights because it actually constricts blood and your muscles won't grow as fast. I just learned that.
Oh, that's good to know. I'll change up my routine sometimes. I have stuff I go by checklist. I've got laminated checklists, and I pull that out, and I'm going to do that. Sometimes things are for reps. A lot of times they're for time. High intensity interval training, like maybe 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. I do maybe a minute on, 20 seconds off. Do like 10 of those. Do that three times. It's 30 minutes. It's a lot. Or sometimes I do just something totally different. The other day I just added a couple things to a routine and I made them backwards or something that's different, something that's kind of uncomfortable initially. Different sequence, different levels of comfort. And you can stress your muscles different ways, in a positive way. Don't do it. Maybe I don't do it all the time. Do something like really heavy with a weighted vest. I do that once in a blue moon, and it's always hard. It's always hard. So just something just make it interesting. Go from boring to interesting or difficult, maybe for a few seconds. Don't hurt yourself. Just try something different.
What I do is I am on the Peloton app and the Apple Fitness app, and they actually have classes. So Katrina and I, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we do a cycling class, then we do a strength class, and then we do yoga. On Tuesday and Thursdays, we actually lift weights. But we change that up with different classes, different instructors, and different routines. And it seems to be working because I feel like I'm getting younger every day, Paul.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah, it's different stuff, different rhythms. I used to do some kind of long distance running. I thought that was okay. And I found when I was doing like quick, things that required quickness and speed and going to someone else's rhythm, either playing ball or martial arts, that long distance running wasn't helping me at all. I needed like short sprints. You're responding to someone else's punches or whatever. That's different than you just acting solo. So that helps me a lot. Something a fist coming at your face, that you're not controlling. You will move quicker.
Well, Paul, there's one other thing I want to put on this gouge list that I didn't realize, and I just read it. I love cruising and I love being on Virgin Voyage, actually. But here's the trip, Paul. If you fish from a cruise line, from any cruise boat, they will ban you from all cruise lines. Your name will go on this list that you won't be able to cruise anymore if you throw a fishing hook off of a cruise ship. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that, and I probably wouldn't think of that in 10,000 years. Don't they serve a lot of food on those ships?
They serve a lot of food, but fishermen are crazy, and they think that maybe out in the middle of the ocean, that's where those big, big, big fish are.
You want to
So
get a
you never know
marlin.
when somebody will do something silly.
Well,
Well, the name of our show is The Wingman Show, and that's because every week we give a wingman. And boy, do I have a good one for you this week, Paul. Paul, in New Orleans, where I went to college at Southern University, there is WWL-TV, and there was this news reporter, Karen Swenson, and she was doing a report on people working. And she passed by a Winn-Dixie and saw this older man pushing carts, like 10 and 12 of them at a time. It was 95 degrees outside, and she went over with a camera to this guy, and his name was Dylan McCormick. He was a 90-year-old Air Force veteran. And she was like, "Why are you doing this? Why are you working so hard out in this heat at 90 years old?" You know what Dylan said? Dylan says that he needs $2,500 a month to survive, and that his Social Security only gave $1,200. And Karen also noticed that everybody in the parking lot was waving at him, and he was smiling to all the customers. Matter of fact, she even saw somebody get out of their car and start helping him pushing carts back, which was incredible, but that's how well loved he was. So Karen did something that was incredible. She went to a GoFundMe page and she raised $233,000. 5,000 people gave to this from her news story, Paul. She raised $233,000 so this man could retire. And when she told him about it, he was so excited. But you know what he said, Paul? He said, "I still got to keep on working. I still have to work." And the Winn-Dixie manager, his name was Chip Taylor, he said he'll have a job here forever. But that brings me to this. No matter how much money you have, you still have to have purpose to wake up. You still have to have something to do. So even though he had enough money to retire, he did not want to stop having purpose and waking up and greeting his customers at Winn-Dixie. I think that is a wonderful wing person, and her name is Karen Swenson, and the other 5,000 people that helped an Air Force veteran, Dylan McCormick, become able to retire. And guess what? This was all done on Memorial Day. What a coincidence. Well, actually, a coincidence is a word for those who don't believe. What do you think, Paul?
I think that's great. Now, Mr. McCormick has got choices. TV reporter has a great story, and everybody can feel good about it. Again, another example of good news that you don't hear anywhere else other than the Wingman Show.
Yep, we're just two dope jet pilots in some Navy jets. You know, I really appreciate everybody listening to us, and I want to wish this for everybody. For you, Dr. Paul, and everybody who can listen to us, anything that you think is important, anything you think is beautiful, and anything that makes you happy, may you have that today and forever. I pray for peace.
I pray for peace too. And we appreciate all those who listen, like, and share our message. If you're watching on YouTube, especially, please give us a like. It helps with the algorithm. Consider subscribing, hit the bell notification, hit that bell icon. That way you'll get an alert every time we have a new podcast out. And pass this on to somebody, share it with somebody. It just takes a couple seconds, and it might make them feel good for the day or longer. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Dr. Paul Thompson, my friend. Thank you for your love, your time, and that's something that we won't ever get back. I want to thank all the listeners, too. Thank you so much for doing the show, Dr. Paul. We're jamming.
Well, thank you, Mr. Drew, for inviting me on. Always good to talk to you. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast or any of the podcasts. If you're looking at YouTube, they say smash the like button. Don't smash it. Just press it gently and refer to use as a link to all your friends. You can also look at us on our website, wingmenshow.com, WINGMEN show, SHOW.com, altogether, wingmenshow.com. And we hope to see you in the future. Thanks again, Mr. Drew.
Oh, you're welcome. And we're still floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. May there be peace on earth and goodwill towards all men and women.